see this right now?
No, go ahead.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I want you to see on my screen the truck that has just pulled up. A truck that I have never seen in my 8 years of being a reporter in New York City, this is the emergency services unit truck here that is a very intimidating sight where you have officers with shields on the roof here. It looks like a military-grade vehicle that is coming down Amsterdam right now with protesters on each side. So we're about to see, this is all. I'm assuming this as I'm saying it out loud, if this is probably why they're removing the barricades so that this kind of truck could come through. And behind that, I don't know if you're able to see on the camera, but behind that there is a motorcade, what appears, of police vehicles. And now I'm finally seeing what appears to be the Corrections Department bus, which, to be frank, I was waiting to be seen because I hadn't seen the Corrections Department bus yet and was wondering how they were planning to make these mass arrests if they weren't going to have that bus. And now I do see it coming in with this very large police thing here that's coming through. So this is what we're seeing on site right now.
And this is just many of the vehicles.
Quite a sight. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you point out, Ali, that you've never seen a vehicle like that. I don't think I have either. I've been around a few extra years. And the departments in this country, not just in New York City, but all around the country, have purchased a lot of these vehicles for events that they are very fearful of, maybe not necessarily this type of an event. But it is interesting to see that behind that vehicle, behind that very large, almost militaristic-looking vehicle.
Wow, what they're doing here.
Go ahead.
Wow. They've just driven up to, this is how it seems they're going to be entering campus right now. Wow. They are not going through the gates, actually. They're what looks like, almost like a fire truck where they have this, what do they call it, like a cherry picker type thing that's now going into what is Hamilton Hall, which is where those students are. So it seems they're not even bothering with the gates. They're just going to be coming onto campus this way.
And it looks like we're seeing it happen right now. Presumably they're going to get to a window, go through a window and get in there. Interesting that they allow our cameras to show this because presumably anybody on the inside would be able to watch this on television. And now we sit here and wait and see how long they take to perhaps move in. Now you're saying that they have this sort of jerry-rigged ramp heading into something in Hamilton Hall. Is that correct?
Yeah, they drove up. They had the cops here on the roof of this vehicle as they drove up. They put out this, like you're saying, a ramp is essentially what it is, that they just a little ungracefully drove up towards this building. There was a bit of a crash sound out here when it drove up.
Now they're pulling away.
They're backing up a little bit, but this is, but I mean, I don't know if that's just to reposition themselves, but this seems to be their tactic, and I can't help but wonder if the police, do want to. You're saying that you're surprised that they're letting the police cameras see this, but perhaps they do want the cameras to see this because they want to perhaps be more transparent with how this is. Because since the media is not allowed onto campus, perhaps they want to be showing, transparently how they will be executing these arrests.
And it could also be possible that this is a feint or a fake, and that they still would be going in, shall we say, the front door, and perhaps not going through a window, or doing both at once. And now we're seeing the vehicle pull back up to the window, and perhaps they're working on a coordinated effort here. I mean, there are all sorts of tactics that we're not privy to, but you can bet that the NYPD has scouted this out. You said the drones were up. They obviously were looking through the windows as best they could to see what they were up against. And now they have the very difficult task of executing this. Screaming to people, get back. I heard protesters yelling, shame on you. And now they're...
Yes, protesters have definitely been, yelling at them for, this whole time. I have just noticed that one of the gate entrances has just reopened. I'm trying to see if police are entering through this way here. So to your point of if, officers are going in multiple ways. So right now they're going through,
looks like they're going in.
The window here.
Yep. With guns drawn.
It's
guns
because, wow. Guns drawn, a shield up.
And what's the next move?
It's interesting that we've been talking about, and the mayor and governor and such and students have been talking about the National Guard being brought in as the last resort, but this, I don't think they were expecting this.
Well, And it almost looks as simply as this officer is trying to open the window. I mean, you would have thought that perhaps they would just smash through it, but or just looking to see who or what is on the other side of that window. But they're not immediately smashing through it, which is the move you thought they might have made.
And why they've chosen this window, I'm not sure if this is just how they're planning to, start and move to the different windows.
Yeah, Allie, you don't have any view on any lower door or anything like that to the Hamilton Hall, do you?
No, there's no street level door to that building. The entrance to Hamilton Hall, where the students are, is the campus side. So if you're entering from the street side, I guess the window's the way to do it. Is there something, can you see, is there something coming out of the window at this point?
No, there's nothing that I can see coming out of the window. I can't even see, your eyes play tricks on you. At one point you'd say maybe there's a shadow in that window, but I can't say that for sure either. You'd have to think that anyone on the other side of that window really has to be concerned right now what's facing them.
Yeah, and I am now seeing the NYPD dozens going in through the gate as well. So you have police going on the ground through the gate. You have police going on in this elevated sense in the window, looking out through the window. So they're definitely making the move in. And, behind me there are hundreds of people. This is where the media pen, so to speak, where the media has been this whole time. But there's also now all the protesters that were outside those gates now. I don't know if they're going to cut my audio because now they're cursing at the police. But, they're behind us, yelling at these officers, watching it. Everyone has their phones up recording this. So this is definitely a very...
It's also possible that this vehicle we're seeing and these guys on the window are just standing there in the event that they feel like someone's going to come try to burst out the window, escape, that kind of thing, and just sort of intimidate the people who are inside and perhaps never move at all. It's hard to tell right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, it's hard to tell, or if they're
now it appears they've cut the window in half and they're going in. They were actually either moving the window up or cutting it in half. So they have breached Hamilton Hall.
They've breached Hamilton Hall officially. They are going through the window. You have officers on campus going on the ground here.
Now we've seen
they are executing.
This would be the third officer going through, another one behind him. It's hard to imagine what's on the other side. Now they've opened a second window. And this may be one of multiple entrances they're going into right now. We presume they might have been going in the front door, but this one wasn't barricaded, so perhaps this was the wise move by officers. And remember, they're ready for anything. There could be a very peaceful surrender. There could be people who get violent or not. And I think what they're hoping for is that whoever is in there will surrender peacefully. I think we're all hoping for that. Allie,
absolutely,
I was going to say, has the crowd gotten any bigger while you're out there of protesters around the building?
Yes, and it definitely has. It's grown in the past few hours just in general with protesters getting here, and now they're all on the sidewalks here behind the barricades watching the police do this. And I have noticed, so where we are, there's like an elevated walkway that goes from across Amsterdam from the campus to the other building that's on the other side of campus that's not technically, not technically on campus. So there's like an elevated walkway here essentially behind me, and that's not accessible unless you're on campus. And I see now dozens and dozens of people up there watching this as well. So whether they're people who, were on campus for other reasons, live on campus or whatnot, there's a large audience in this area.
It's a fascinating.
That is watching this all play out.
It's a fascinating approach or a tactic. Now we don't know what's going on other doors, perhaps other windows, but this certainly isn't a lightning strike into Hamilton Hall. This is a slow, laborious process. So you have to figure perhaps there are two or maybe two more points of entry that they're going into right now. But right now, I think we're up to about 9 or 10 officers that have made their way in there.
And there's a line behind of, I don't even know, at least a dozen officers that are on the ladder behind them waiting to, seemingly go in. They're lined up behind the cops that are going to the window now. And they have a line that were all in that truck that pulled up a few minutes ago, seemingly going in.
And they all are armed, and they all have riot gear on, and they don't know what they're going to encounter because police had been told that professional agitators were in Hamilton Hall. They didn't know how many, and they couldn't say where they were from necessarily, but they did say, quote, "We have seen them elsewhere," which is sort of a warning to officers that they're professionals, they know what they're doing, and perhaps they want to make sure that they're not setting any traps or they're not waiting for them. But now it appears there's a much more energetic, shall we say, approach into the building. And now, assuming once they get in there, they have to detain the people who are in there, they have to put them in the zip ties, and then they have to get them out of there and then also say to themselves, okay, we're going to be coming down to some protesters who are not going to be happy to see these arrests. And that could make things very difficult for the NYPD.
Definitely, and that's why you have these barricades here, and you know, that's why I think before this truck came in, they made a point to move the protesters to the opposite side of the street behind the barricades. But I do want to, you know, remind our audience that when the police arrested the students, whatever it was, 2 weeks ago or so, the first go around, and they brought them down to police headquarters downtown for processing and such, there was a large group of protesters that actually tried to block that bus that was carrying the arrested students as it got down. Clearly, they were not fully successful. Police were able to carry out what they needed to do with the people that they had in custody there. But you know, that is the types of pushback that we've been seeing from protesters out here has been, you know, that type of demonstration here. Right now, you know, we don't see people seeming to break through the barricades. Everyone does seem to be, that I can see, respecting the police barricades that are here. They are chanting, of course, but that's, you know, nothing illegal about that. So, and you know, each time I look back over to the truck with the police officers, it seems like more police officers in khaki pants are lining up.
It was just a little difficult to hear you for a second. My question is, are there still, from your vantage point, officers going in through the main gate of the campus?
The main gate is open. The gate is open. There are police officers in riot gear standing outside at this point. I saw a couple dozen go in a few minutes ago. I don't see any more going in at the precise moment, and I don't see anyone coming out either.
The reason why I ask is because I think it's that secondary question that we have, which is, A, we just assumed they were going into Hamilton Hall to remove those students, but B, would there be any kind of larger action on the campus? Because you have to admit that if you're the police, you say, okay, we clear out Hamilton Hall, but if we leave other, shall we say, professional agitators who are still on campus, the possibility exists that they could try and do something else that they would be worried about. So I had been curious this whole night to wonder.
Well, there are 3 encampments as of this afternoon. There's the one in Hamilton Hall, there's the original encampment on the lawn, and then today, the protest group, the student organization that's been organizing these protests, has said there is actually a second outdoor encampment on campus that has sprung up today. So as of this afternoon, there were at least 3 different encampments, all for the same message, all with the same group, that were on campus here. So, you know, they very well maybe also be trying to clear out the encampment that's happening with those tents that we've been seeing on the lawns, as well as a possible second one. But that I'm not sure of. At this point, I can only see for certain that, you know, officer after officer after officer, a couple handful of officers at this point, with the emergency services unit of the NYPD, are now going through the window of Hamilton Hall. Now, the past minute or so, the lights have turned on in that floor where it's been since we've gone in. So we're going to be continuing to monitor this as the officers continue to go into Hamilton Hall. We're going to pause for at the moment and be right back.